Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio. Your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Howdy y'all, Red O'Laughlin here. We're on the Corner Bookstore on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And today is kind of a special day in many, many regards. We're getting toward the end of winter, which is always a most grateful thing for me. I'm a summer kind of guy. But we had, 80, almost 85 degrees yesterday here in the Houston area. It was very, very delightful. Regardless of the weather, broadcast, and everything else, today my guest on the Corner Bookstore is Dr. Bruce Solheim. Dr. B, or Bruce, is he, Dr. B to his students, and Bruce for our show today, and maybe an occasional doctor. He's a professor, an author, a playwright, been teaching history for 30 plus years, helicopter pilot in the Army, did a number of different things over his life. So I think today's going to just be a really interesting discussion. So Dr. B, why don't you join me today, and let's go ahead and get started.
Well, hello, Red. Thanks for inviting me.
Okay, I guess the first question is your doctorate in history. You've been teaching for many, many years. You had a little stint in the military way back when, probably not super important today, but you got started in writing many, many years before you went in the Army, and many years before you even thought you'd be a college professor. So why don't we start a little bit about your writing history way back when, and how that kind of helped anywhere perform in your life.
Yeah, writing. Well, my parents are from Norway. They're immigrants. They came over after World War II. They lived under Nazi occupation and wanted to start a new life after World War II. And they moved to Seattle. I was born in Seattle in 1958. When I was about 9 or 10 years old, my parents made sure I had a typewriter because they realized I had a knack for writing. And it was very functional for them too, because for my dad, he needed letters written in English every once in a while and typed. So I would type those letters for him on a typewriter. So I started writing and typing, back in the days of a manual typewriter, very early on. And I'd write my own stories, of course, and I made my own comic books. And that's really how it got started, is really very much helping my father, who could speak English, understand English, but had a great difficulty writing it. And then it just blossomed from there. I ended up going to college and succeeding somewhat at first, and then I got out and I kind of dropped out of college and went into the Army. So, and I've been writing ever since, all the time. I write several hours a day, so it's just a practice that I've kept up.
Okay, so when you started writing, it was a manual typewriter?
Yeah. And that's what really inspired. I mean, I liked writing by hand too, but I never quite learned how to write cursive. So I was always block printing, which can get kind of tiresome with the hand. So I was really happy when my parents got me this manual typewriter. It was an old Royal typewriter. I remember I have a reasonable facsimile of it on my shelf here to the left of me. But yeah, it was, I just loved it. I mean, it made it easier. And now, of course, in the days of, well, there was word processors and, well, electric typewriters, word processors, and now computers. And it's just made it so much easier. In fact, almost too easy with AI. So, which everybody uses, even if they say they don't. That's something I have to confront my students about, and but anyway, we don't have to talk about all that, but it's things change so in my lifetime have changed so much in terms of just the writing profession, and I try to keep up with it as best I can, try to stay at least on par with my students in terms of technology, which is not easy.
I can imagine it's on a good day it's difficult.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, you're in California, is that right?
Yeah, LA County, Los Angeles County. Yeah.
Did you have any difficulties with the fires?
We had a couple of, we were lucky. We were about 12 miles away from the Altadena fires and a little bit further away from the Pacific Palisades. But we had some very bad air days, and we saw the big plumes of smoke. So, but we know several people, including a couple at the college where I teach, Citrus College, that lost their homes. And yeah, so it's so tragic, and people finger pointing, and I don't think they've figured it all out yet. But the bottom line is we just have to help those people who were impacted, and that includes everybody from homeowners to people who clean houses and gardeners and everybody whose livelihoods or life were in those communities that were just wiped out. It's almost surreal when you see especially the aerial shots. You being a pilot, the power of that, and the helicopters that fly over, and you can see some of that on video. And it's just, huge swaths of homes just burnt to the ground. It's just so sad. And then if you're an animal lover too, there's all those poor animals that were killed as well. So,
I've always thought, why, if I'm going to have a house near a national park or forest,
mhm,
why would I not want to have some level of protection against fires?
mhm,
And that would mean, maybe rocks going out, to the edge of my property so I don't
mhm,
have grass catching on fire or bushes, or
mhm.
maybe even having in a fluid system coming down the roof to minimize. But then I was thinking, actually, last night I was driving and I'm thinking to myself, if I owned a house like that, what would I want to do? And then I'm thinking, well, maybe I have this little box on top of the house that shoots out a protective, almost like a spider web,
Mhm.
that would keep cinders from actually contacting any flammable object on my home. I
Yeah.
still have an issue with not having water, having poor air, whatever, no electricity.
Yeah.
But at least I would have a standing, probably livable home. I probably have to, defumigate it with the smoke smell,
Mhm.
but at least I would have something. That's probably going to be somebody's patent in 5 years or something. But
I think you're right, and you're right about the intakes into the home. Any little vent hole or anything, that's where those cinders went. And of course, when the winds are 90 miles an hour blowing that stuff, it gets in into the attic. And once that gets in there, there's nothing you can do. And that's how most of the houses burnt so quickly, and why it spread so quickly is just because of, well, the wind. And there were problems with the water and so forth that hopefully they can address those things. But yeah, I think a lot of homes in California are built very close to each other, which doesn't help. And it's hard to have that defensive perimeter, when your homes are like 6 feet away from each other.
yep,
So, so there's a lot of things they're going to have to think through. And the sad news is that a lot of these folks who are, inherited their homes from their parents or grandparents probably are not going to be able to afford to rebuild, even with insurance. Um, and that's doubly tragic. So yeah, anyway, I could go on, but anyway, I just you get what I'm saying. So
okay. So you went in the Army for a while. You became
yep,
smarter, and you said, well, maybe
yep,
college is really worthwhile anyway. I know that as I progress through life, when somebody else is paying the bill, it's not as important until I'm paying the bill for my education. And then
yep,
all of a sudden things change a little bit. So
yeah.
you decided at some point in time that maybe college was the real career you wanted to be in. So
Yep.
with that thought, why history?
Yeah, because my dad was a storyteller. He was a fisherman. He was a carpenter. He was in a labor camp during World War II, so he had it. He had it better than a lot of folks, as he always said, because the Germans treated them a little bit better than other folks who they put to work. And But he was a hard worker, but he was a great storyteller. And my mom was a maid. She was a homemaker, and she was an artist. So she had a very different way of looking at things. And then my dad was a great storyteller. So I just gravitated towards history because I get paid to tell stories and write stories, the books that I write. So it seemed to be a natural profession for me. And I had a lot of great mentors, history teachers. A couple of them I commend. One of the earliest ones was Dr. Sidney T. Matthews, passed away many years ago. He was a military historian. He was in the Army in World War II and met all of the great generals of the time, and wrote, his name is prominent among the U.S. Army history of World War II in the Italian campaign, I think was the volume that he helped write. So he was a great storyteller, a Southern gentleman. He kind of looked like Colonel Sanders, the old Colonel Sanders. And he would just start the class by just telling stories and then fill in, things here and there. And we were spellbound. I mean, it was great. So that's where I got the idea I wanted to do that.
Okay, so you've written what, 11 books and 10 plays and a couple series of comic books. I mean, it's not like you're a prolific writer, but you are. But I noticed one of the books you wrote on history was the Vietnam era, which
Mm-hmm.
is something that I got an invitation to Vietnam, so it's something I have a little
Yeah.
bit of experience in. So some of your books are academic books that
Mm-hmm.
are being used in colleges,
Mm-hmm.
and some of them are part of your personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the comic books. So why don't we take them in order? You have collegiate books that
Yeah.
are college courses
Mm-hmm.
that have come about because you are a professor, and that's
Mm-hmm.
somewhat of an expectation at a few colleges. So
Yeah.
what books have you published that are available for students, just so we kind of have an idea of the breadth of your writing?
Yeah. So I teach modern American history. I teach early American history, and I teach the history of the Vietnam War. And I have my own textbooks for each one of those classes, so that I've developed over the years. So the Vietnam War one is called the Vietnam War Era, and then Making History is the modern U.S. history textbook, and the recent one is called I'm an American. So that's the for early U.S. history. And I just found that it fits in better with my teaching when I use my own book rather than to have to apologize for something in another person's book. Usually one of these mass-produced with several authors kind of textbooks. So I really call mine anti-textbooks because it's written by one person. I'm not compromising with other people. It's just what I think, and I add a very personal touch to each chapter. In fact, I include comic books in each chapter, a one-page comic for each one, tied into a personal story, tied into themes in that period of history. So I really made it what I'm all about, and the students love it. And what dawned on me was I don't even like reading the books I had to assign. And if I don't read them, the students aren't going to read them. So I thought I'm going to write something that I like and I think will be entertaining and helpful for them. So it's been successful, according to the students, And
Okay.
that, yeah. So and for the Vietnam book, it was very personal to me too, because my brother served in Vietnam, and he passed away for Christmas 2023. So I'm still getting over that loss, big loss. And he suffered a great deal the last few years from Agent Orange related illnesses, multiple illnesses that I'm sure you're aware of, and a lot of your audience is aware of. And he wrote 100 letters back home that my mom preserved, and I used those as the basis for coming up with this textbook about the Vietnam War. So it was very personal. And then I did my historical narration, and then the second part of it was personal history. What my brother was saying, what I remember when he was in Vietnam. So it was kind of two voices. You know, what my brother would say, oh, everything's okay today except for an occasional sniper, you know, and it was so typically Norwegian. It's so understated, you know. It's like everything was fine today, don't worry. Yeah, there was a sniper, but you know, whatever. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, does he realize, you know, mom is like pulling her hair out when she's reading this? So yeah, so that's you know, that book is very I use that for the Vietnam course, and I'm still teaching it. There's not too many people who teach that course anymore. A lot of the folks who did were Vietnam vets. So I was just after Vietnam when I went in the service in 1978. But everybody I knew, all my sergeants, all my officers, commanding officers, all of them were Vietnam vets. The people that taught me how to fly were 18, 19 years old during Vietnam, and the best helicopter pilots in the world, those guys. So
sometimes that Agent Orange is very insidious because you can live literally decades and never have a single symptom.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you either have some major catastrophic stuff, or if you're fortunate enough to go in and catch something at the very start and be able to be treated, that's great. But it just, and then some people suffer the whole time. I mean, it's just, it's kind of crazy. Yes, I was where Agent Orange was, but I didn't have any problems till literally about 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. And then all of a sudden, okay, well, this and that, and it's Agent Orange related.
Yeah.
But I would never be testing for it had I not. Well, my personal deal is I haven't missed a annual physical since 1968.
Good for you.
I had 31, flight physicals in the military. And then I just kept that going. And so it's one of those things I look forward to every year. Get my physical, find out what's going on.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, whoa, what's that? And then you go from there. You also wrote, let's see, I want to make sure I don't exceed. We have a commercial break coming up in about 2 minutes. You also wrote 10 plays, of which I think 6 have been published. Tell us a little bit, because playwriting is different than normal writing, novels or how-to books or anything like that. So how did you get into playwriting?
Yeah, and it's interesting, the name playwright is there's like shipwrights and cartwrights and people who, are like carpenters, right? So it's interesting that my dad was a storyteller and a carpenter. So I just, made it my writing, to create plays. And I found my voice with playwriting. I've also written screenplays as well. They just haven't been produced as films. I do have some people looking at some of my screenplays right now, but I've had 2 produced on the stage and 4 produced online, and it's a different modality. And it started, my first play that I wrote was based on a Vietnam vet friend of mine who unfortunately took his own life, and I was devastated, as were many other veteran friends of mine. And I had to do something with that story, and I thought I could write a historical narrative, or I could maybe tell it in a different way. And I stumbled on to, I'm going to write a play. How do you write a play? Well, I took a cram course in it. I sat in on audited classes at Cal State LA, and I got into it, and right off the bat, it got accepted for production, and we went on to win a couple of awards from the Kennedy Center American College Theater Festival. Yeah, and it's called The Bronze Star, and it's a great story, and I think an uplifting. Although it's a tragic story, it is uplifting. And so that's how that started. And I still write plays. My last few things have been screenplays, but there's differences between those two. They all have steep learning curves. So,
well, Dr. B, we're getting ready to take a quick break here. We'll be back in about a minute and a half. So,
okay.
Red Laughlin here. We're on the Corner Bookstore on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And my guest today is Dr. Bruce Solheim. He's a professor of history, and we're just finishing up a section on playwriting and screenplays. Welcome back. Let's get Dr. B back here on the studio with me. I've always read, I love movies, but I've never really been to a play until I was stationed in New York City for a couple of years. And you associate with a couple, we're going to have a play. Let's go down. And so we go down and you just kind of get hooked. I mean, almost addicted. Okay, where are we going this week? What's going on? Mm-hmm. And I had a chance to see a lot of things. And probably one of the more memorable ones, I was sitting probably third or fourth row near the center, and Les Miserables. Mm-hmm. And they fired this cannon off, and just all of a sudden, not only did the sonic boom go by me, but this heat wave went by my face, and whoa! Mm-hmm. It was so realistic in the way they did things, and so you start looking for those. I remember another one I mentioned to my wife quite often. We were sitting there together, and all of a sudden it started raining on stage, and the mm-hmm. little house in the center kind of opened up and closed up, and so in between the rain it would open up and the play would be there. So mm-hmm. there's so many things that you can do with the play that we don't even think about doing when we're writing books.
Right.
And even screenplays, it's interesting how much different that is even from mm-hmm. just playwriting. So you picked up a lot of good skills. So before we get into the comic books, what is some of the things that if somebody came to you, one of your students said, I see you do this and this and this, I want to write something. What would you tell them?
Well, first I would encourage them to start right away. Even if you don't know the modality yet, just in whatever way you can, get it down on paper or on the screen or whatever if you're using a typewriter still, just start pouring it out there, pour your heart out. And don't worry about it being perfect. My playwriting instructor at Cal State LA told me it's capturing butterflies. Make sure you capture the butterflies when they fly by. It's an idea, it's a thought. With your net, gently capture it, put it in a box, and make sure you do it. Don't wait until it's perfect, or whatever. Just get it, save it, because oftentimes those things that hit us like that don't last, and then you forget it, and then it's could be gone forever. So that's the first thing. Just start today, and then start figuring out how am I going to put this together? How, is it going to be a play? Is it going to be a theater play? Is it going to be a screenplay, a movie? Is it going to be a novel? Is it going to be a part of a memoir, maybe, or some, or a comic book for that matter? And it'll tell you, like for the play I was talking about, the first theater play that I wrote, the first image came to me I pictured it in my mind as I was doing jogging around a track. I pictured, well, first of all, I heard the song Fortunate Son, which, I'm sure you're aware of, and a lot of by Creedence, CCR. And John Fogerty, right? And I pictured two young soldiers on a battlefield, and one of them was, looking at the other one and admiring him, how much he loved that man, and that's a kind of love that's hard to explain to people that haven't been in combat, and that's the image I had, and I thought, okay, that's the opening right there, and that became the opening of the play. So sometimes those images can come, or maybe they're words that come, or a thought, whatever it is, capture that. I captured that immediately, so I didn't lose it. And then I elaborated on that. So, and it can, there's some stories that have to be told that are better told by you, the writer, in a different way. Maybe a screenplay, very visual, with less dialogue. Theater plays tend to be dialogue heavy, and comic books are a whole other thing that kind of combine a lot of different things. And of course, novels. I've written one novel. It was for middle school readers. That was really challenging because I had to avoid the old head hopping thing. I had to learn all about that, So Yeah, just start doing, just do it. You know, the old Nike thing. Just get started, and then figure it out later how you're going to present it. And
How did you get into comic books?
well, comic books, I owe everything to comic books. I wouldn't be a professor today if it wasn't for comics. My mom allowed me to buy comic books. I was struggling to learn how to read, and even though she only had a sixth grade education, she realized this boy needs help. He seems to like comic books, and other parents were saying, no, they're not good for you, whatever. And she said, no, go ahead and buy them. And I figured it out. I was looking at the pictures, I saw the words that I was scrambling around, and oh, I get it. I see what's going on here. And it encouraged me to read. And the more I read, the more comic books I bought, the better my reading skills became. And then I made my own comics, so combining the artistic talent that I had with the writing. And but it wasn't until 2017, I think it was, or 2019, whatever it was, that I published my first comic. So
Oh wow!
it took a long time. I did write and illustrate my own comic strip in the Technocrat newspaper. It was a school newspaper at Montana Tech. I was studying petroleum engineering, which I failed. I dropped out of petroleum engineering school, but I did spend a lot of time writing and illustrating a comic strip. The character was Snark, and that was in 1982. And yeah, it was 2019. I'm sorry, that I published my first Snark actual comic book. And so 37 years later. So the thing is, don't give up. You know, keep those ideas going, even if it percolates for 39 years, you know, or whatever it was. And I finally published it, and then my dream came true. Of all the books I've published, probably my comic books, I mean, I'm proud of all of it. But the comic books, that's an homage to something that's very dear to me. And I still publish them. So.
Well, I noticed when I looked at your website, there was a number of different comic books there on, I think on the homepage. I'm not sure which.
Yeah.
Maybe our production engineer will bring that up in a moment. Okay, let's see what we got here. Yeah, you have some of the comic books there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, like Gigline is the newest one that's coming out here in March. And it's a comic book autobiography. So it's my autobiography told through 36 different 2-page comics, illustrated by dozens of artists from around the world. I didn't want just one artist. I wanted all these different artists to depict my stories. So they're different styles, you know, different ways they're interpreting the story. And I'm illustrated in many different ways. Like on the cover there, I'm illustrated by a very talented Polish artist who I've been working with. She's only 22 years old, and she depicted me at that set as a E1, a private private E1 in the Army when I first joined, and then I got the Norwegian flag and the American flag, anyway, and then a lot of the weird paranormal things that have happened. There's I don't know if that one has a helicopter, a Huey in the background, which is a helicopter I flew. And all the stories, you know, they're chronological, like from even before I was born, like when my dad barely made it back to Norway in Christmas 1939. You know, they were dodging the U-boats in the Battle of the Atlantic. He was a war sailor, and before he got home, and then the Nazis invaded in April of 1940. So after my parents got married, so it starts with that, and then him as a fisherman, and how he almost died in a whirlpool off Kodiak Island, and yeah, so, and all the way up to the present, things that are happening. So they're all 2-pagers.
Did you ever fly the Hughes Cayuse OA6A? I think it was.
No, everybody wanted to. The little bird, as it's called. No, I never got to. I've heard that was one of the best. I only flew the trainer, which was the TH-55 or Hughes 269, the old Korean War vintage kind of thing. And then the Huey, of course, the UH-1. That's my favorite helicopter. Old reliable. That's what I called the Huey. Nothing fancy about it, just solid. And then I flew the OH-58, which is the Bell Jet Ranger, because I was in the Air Cavalry at Fort Bragg, 82nd Airborne. And that was a nice helicopter, but I'm a big guy, and it was really tight for me. I don't know why they put big guys in little helicopters. And my friend who was little, they put him in a Chinook. I don't, military logic, right?
Yeah, my dad worked at Hughes in California. I went out to visit, and his boss took me out, and I got a couple hours in the Cayuse. So it was very interesting. But anyway, let's
Yes.
getting back to you because we're starting to run out of things here.
Yep.
As an author, you write, you get the book edited, you do some marketing, you work with designers for covers.
Mhm.
All of those things are part of the package that you have to go through in order to get that book out there. So with the time we have left, cover art. Let's talk a little bit about that because that's what sells your books. People see that and they want to know more.
Yeah. It's man, I've made mistakes with covers. Like I have one cover for my third Timeless book. It's a good life lesson here. I it's called Timeless Trinity, and I think it's a good book, and it talks about UFOs, aliens, paranormal stuff. I mean, it lets it all hang out, right? But the cover is so scary that it scares people away. I've had people say, "I'd love the book, but man, that cover, I got to put something over the cover because that reptilian lady thing that you had illustrated there," and I had it illustrated by my friend Gary Dumm, who's been illustrating comics since the 70s. So you have to be careful what you pick. And then I have a book called Anzar, also a paranormal book, and it didn't quite turn out the way it also looked scary, and I didn't want it to be scary. So it does make a big difference, and you never know what the visceral reaction is going to be for people, for readers. So I've learned a lot from that, and I think I work with I draft. I'm a frustrated artist myself, so I will come up with a concept and I'll give it to professional artists to do the covers. So it's not easy to make those decisions. It really isn't. So
Okay, I think we have a couple slides that were sent over for the show today.
oh yeah, this is a story by Gary Dumm, who's the artist that's been working in comics since the underground comics days in the 70s. He was doing comics. And this is one of the stories from Gigline. And it's about how I was inspired by comedians and the essence of humor. And so I discuss a number of comedians that I admire, from Don Rickles to Jonathan Winters, Robin Williams, and others, and Edmund Gwynn, who played the Santa Claus in the old Miracle on 34th Street. When he was dying, I love this story. When he was dying, people said, "Is it difficult?" And he said, "Dying is easy. Comedy is hard." It's one of my favorite quotes, and it really is. Trying to find the right balance, and comedians get themselves in trouble. They want to take it up to the edge, and then sometimes they spill over. But just below the surface of comedy is tragedy, and that's the connection. And just like the Greek theater masks, the tragedy and the laughter. So, and of course George Carlin was one of my favorites, and Richard Pryor. So, yeah, it's just an homage to comedy. And as I was growing up, I watched a lot of television. Now this is from my Dr. Jekyll Alien Hunter comic. So this is a female lead character in a comic book, which is not very common, and she's a anthropologist who takes on her father's. Her father dies, and he started looking into ancient aliens, and he kind of got driven out of his university. Well, she took over his mantle, if you will, and continued his research, which causes friction with her university. And she has all these strange adventures. And so that's from that. And this is illustrated by that young Polish artist I told you about, Julia Kazanowska. So she's just tremendously talented. I can only imagine what she's going to be doing in another 10 years. I mean, she's already extremely talented. It's just, I'm glad I got her to work now, because I'm not going to be able to afford her here pretty soon.
But you know, as a speaker, and it's very difficult to put humor into a speech at a particular point in time.
Yes. Yes.
And it can be, and as you said, it could be very tragic if all of a sudden it doesn't connect with the audience. You're there with a lot of silence.
Yes.
That's a skill set that requires a lot of talent. But anyway, I know you have a couple of new comic books you mentioned in backstage, and we're getting ready to wrap things up here very quickly. So how do people get in touch with you? How do they get your products? I know you wanted to tell people, live the dream, don't give up. Let's, empowerment, be inspired. Why don't we take the next minute and let you wrap up today's show, but also include how do people get your materials, your books, your plays, etc.
Yeah, well, the easiest place to go is my website, Bruce Olav Solheim altogether.com. And you can go there, and then you'll see all my books there, which are hyperlinked, most of them, except for the gig line, which is not out yet. And then you can also go to Amazon and find every book that I've written as well. And they're in ebook and print form, so you can get them there. And so that's the best way to, and also on my webpage, you can get a hold of me if you want to talk to me. I like to talk to people or exchange information with them, or if they have things they want to tell me, whatever, or advice I can give them, more than happy to. The idea of being empowered and inspired, that's what my teaching job mainly is. I don't just get up there and pontificate. I want to help people to facilitate their own empowerment and to do what they're destined to do. And don't give up. It took me 39 years to publish my first comic book. And whatever it is that you're doing, whatever writing you're doing or storytelling you're doing, just do it and figure it out, and audit a class. If you don't want to take a credit class, audit a class or take a community ed class, and learn the craft and talk to people who are doing it, and don't give up. And along the way, and this is really important, always keep love in your heart. It's so hard. It's so easy to say and so hard to do. It really is.
Well, Bruce, Dr. B, thank you so very much for your time today. For our audio audience, Bruce, B-R-U-C-E, just like it's normally seen. Olav, O-L-A-V, V as in Victor. Solheim, SOLHEIM.com. So Bruce Olav Solheim. Doctor, I look forward to our next venture, and we can get into more details in a number of different areas. So have fun, enjoy, and
thank you, Red.
Stay away from the fires. So
yeah, exactly.
Take care, senor. We're wrapping up the Corner Bookstore today on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. I'm Red O'Laughlin. Next is the Wise Ones in about 20 minutes. I have an Army veteran, back-to-back Army veterans today. In this particular case, he got out of the Army and decided to become an entrepreneur. And that transition for a lot of us after a number of decades in a particular field is very difficult to do. And he's become very successful in that area. So we're going to talk a number of different areas in there, but that transition is primarily what I would like to focus on. So with that being said, just another wonderful day here in the USA Global TV and Radio Network audience around the world. Thank you for your time. And immediately following the Wise Ones, I'll be talking about fasting on Talking Heads today, and that's in about an hour and 20 minutes. So take care, y'all. Catch you. Bye now.
Ever dreamed of hosting your own TV show, sharing your story with a global audience? Now's your chance to shine. At USA Global TV and Radio, we make it easy for you to create, host and broadcast your very own TV show. Whether you're a storyteller, entrepreneur or industry expert, we help you bring your vision to life. With our exclusive interview, live streaming and podcasting training, you'll gain the skills and confidence to captivate your audience. Our global platform ensures your voice is heard worldwide. Join our community of creators who are already making an impact, one show at a time. Step into the spotlight. Host your own TV show on USA Global TV and Radio. Book your discovery call today at usaglobaltv.com. Copyright 2025 USA Global TV and Radio. All rights reserved. Terms and conditions apply. To learn more, visit usaglobaltv.com.
USA Global TV and Radio proudly presents Steve Klein Art at steveklein.art.
My name is Steve Klein, born Manchester, England, 1953. My quest in my lifetime is to create artwork from my soul and the deepness within my wildest dreams and fantasies. In 2012, my heart stopped when I was given too much anesthetic for a minor knee operation, and this near-death experience took me to another multi-dimensional world, an out-of-body experience, and I was given the gift of being blessed by an overwhelming, burning passion to become, for the very first time in my life, an artist with an eternal, passionate desire to bring my art, which I've named multi-dimensional, subliminal, freeform art, to the world, as only 3% recover from what I experienced, and now in my golden years want to release my cosmic, vital energy through my art to allow people to be a part of my cosmic dance.
To learn more, email roccogoodwine@gmail.com. For VIP pricing, mention USA Global TV and Radio.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA Global TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting. We're building bridges and changing lives, one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dyes. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.